So if you guys, you know, the share screen button at the bottom, I think I have to allow you to do that. So go ahead.
Gotcha. And here we are. Hi, folks. Thanks for dialing in, and Alan, thanks for setting this up. It's I suppose in the absence of networking events, this is a nice way of people getting together and sharing their thoughts. So I'm just going to run you through. Hopefully, I'm sharing the right screen there. You should be able to see a presentation.
Yeah, so it's our services and
okay.
Click in there. Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay, so a lot of you guys are probably familiar with landing aviation. I won't bore you to tears. We're here to talk about design. My role in Atlantic Aviation is Head of Design Services. We have Part 21 J approval for approximately 3 years this year, and doing minor mods, cabin, avionics, and external livery. The group, our core business really is the MRO. So we have a hangar based in Shannon, maintaining all the Boeing types effectively, 73, 75, 76. It's been impacted obviously by COVID-19, but not to a large scale just yet, because a lot of our customers that we have from March through September are the cargo operators, and they haven't been hit to the same extent. Certainly their business, if anything, has gone up. So it's just operational constraints that's hitting them really. We've got Camel services, and we've got a 147 training school here as well. So I prepared 3 slides just to show you guys what we're seeing and some of what we're doing in the design world. I'll try and get through this fairly quickly. I don't want to bore anyone to tears. First thing I suppose that everyone kind of saw, and we got some inquiries initially when COVID-19 you know, started to impact us in Europe. A lot of inquiries for I said here, you know, cargo flights, but also medical flights as well. So in both cases, you know, we got inquiries for carrying cargo, and there's 2 aspects to cargo. There's, you know, the operators generally with the wide bodies where they're taking out the seats and carrying in cargo strapped down to the seat tracks. That's a really STC level, but EASA are making some exceptions if on the provision, you know, that it's for the carriage of medical supplies. So some of you are probably familiar with, and you've seen a lot of news in LinkedIn, where, you know, EASA are basically allowing the local authorities to do that. So I think DOA's got involved to some extent in supporting those changes, but basically the authorities were issuing exemptions for the most part. The other mod that's out there traditionally has been an STC because there's a special condition against it. But again, EASA had some leniency in the, you know, in the case of COVID-19, that was for these cargo seat bags. So basically you've seen the A320s and 73s would be, a lot of operators have been loading the seat bags onto the seats and doing that with the support of design organizations and the authorities again, where exemptions are needed. Atlantic Aviation haven't really got involved in any of that. We've had inquiries, but because the exemptions are out there, operators work directly with their authorities. And the other thing we had some inquiries for was for carriage of you know, stretchers, so for medical flights, such. But there's STCs out there already in the market. It's really, by the time a design organization would develop an STC, probably would be too late for the immediate requirement that was there. So the other thing that we've been doing, and I think a lot of other design organizations have been doing, is marketing the what are the potential solutions for the changes to the cabin. So that would say once the passenger, you know, once flights are kind of back in the air and active again, I suppose airlines are putting in provisions there to ensure that they comply with EASA's guidelines in terms of PPE, maintaining distance, that sort of thing. Design organizations would support that to a certain extent by, so we've had some inquiries and we're working on some solutions for installing sanitizer dispensers Storage, additional storage options, signage for the cabin, typical signage that you see around for maintaining social distancing. Touchless devices, not something we're working on, but I think it's definitely there's going to be a market for that. I think maybe some of the some of the the premium airlines, I think, will be looking at putting like touchless we say the sanitizer dispensers or for the faucets or for the flush in the labs, that sort of thing. The other thing we're seeing there is a lot on LinkedIn. I don't know if any airlines have implemented any of this. Obviously, there's huge certification activity involved. Let me see if I can get out of this for a sec. Sorry, guys, you're not seeing this, I don't think.
So yeah, just we have the DOA slide there at the moment, Colin. Yeah.
Yeah. So that link will bring you to basically Avio Interiors. They've had some really interesting potential kind of changes to seats, etc. I think I got it.
Yeah, it's probably on if you on your browser, is it the page? We're still seeing the DOA organization responding to COVID-19 slide. There's another slide popping up there now.
There you are.
Avio Interiors, the LinkedIn, very good. Yeah, see that there now. Yeah, I've seen that reverse seat concept. It's a bit strange, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll go through. I was showing Alan earlier. There's another interesting website. So this is Avio Interiors. They do, they're not one of the major suppliers, I suppose, so they can react quite quickly. And they were one of the first to come out with some unusual sort of ideas for seat designs. We're not really. I think a lot of this is speculative. I don't think airlines are investing in new seats, given that they're really struggling, I think, at the moment. But maybe it's something we see in the in the far future. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Okay, let me get back to this. And I suppose the last thing, how are we responding to COVID-19 is really, we've seen a reduction in the amount of activity, in particular, from leasing companies with transitions and cabin changes. So airlines, the mods that we're working on as a design organization at the moment are mostly supporting cargo airlines with avionic mods, that sort of thing. And some of these solutions that we're looking at for the cabins. So other than that, we're doing some other R&D activity. I'll go through that at the end. Okay, rather than focus too much on COVID-19, just a couple of recent developments in Part 21 world as such. Some of you might be familiar with all of these already, but I would say these are the top three that are kind of affecting or top three kind of new developments that EASA have come out with that are relevant to us, and at least as a design organization. So first one is level of involvement. I have the link in there. I'm not going to go through the link as such, but I think if Alan shares these slides with everyone afterwards, you'll be able to follow that through and get the detailed explanation from EASA. But basically, level of involvement has gone through as of late last year sometime. And what it means is for design organizations doing STCs, they're measured, for lack of a better word, and EASA assign their competency is measured and different areas. And what it means is if you're a design organization, let's say, who's an expert in reconfigurations, and you're doing an STC for reconfiguration, and EASA have a high level of confidence, what it means is that the organization can issue the STC, or for the most part, that EASA would have very little involvement in the approval of the STC. So it should really help going forward, as design organizations start to specialize in different things, and it'll help them become you have a level of expertise and you'll be able to get STCs issued and out the door quicker. So that should, we all know that there's a hesitance to go down the route of STC sometimes simply because we don't know how long it's going to take the asset to respond. Second thing is lithium batteries. So been a lot of talk over the last few years. We've all heard of the incidents, 787 and some other aircraft, where lithium batteries have caused fires in aircraft. 78, I suppose, is the most notorious because it ended up in the ground unit of the aircraft. But there have been other incidents. As of last year, I think there was a workshop. I'll see if I can dig up that slide here. So this will bring you to the STC workshop from 2019. STC workshop is it's one of the EASA events where design organizations will participate and they discuss various changes in the regulation, etc. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this up here.
Right.
Doesn't want to do it.
Back at the LinkedIn page there now.
Yeah, I think you should be able to see the slide here. So,
okay, the screen share has gone off there, Colin. So click the screen share button again. The bottom, the green button at the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, the slide still not showing. Oh, here we go. There we go.
Yeah, it mightn't be exactly the way I wanted to share.
All right, that's the EASA page. Very good. Battery with capacity. I see that there now. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, EASA have come out with this. I don't know if any of the participants have been affected, but certainly it's affected us. We were, typically, one of the common mods that we do as a design organization is emergency equipment changes, and most emergency equipment layouts are going to have an ELT, portable ELT, and they're going to have a defibrillator, two devices that would typically have your non-rechargeable lithium batteries. So EASA came out with a basically, I suppose, a little bit of guidance, but for lack of a better word, it's a soft rule, if you want to call it that all lithium battery installations are now major. So what that means is our minor mods for doing our portable ELT installations are now major mods. So we've had some experience with them in reclassifying a couple of them, but it is a bit of, there's some work involved in that. Before we can, move forward with a mod, we have to basically, spec that mod, do a safety assessment, justifying a reclassification and submit that to EASA. So that's affected us directly with ELTs and ULB installation mods that we have. In fairness, they give us some criteria, and this is what we use in our justification. So possible reclassification on the provision that there's a couple of items that you might meet here, and the one that's most commonly met is the top one here. So we typically your battery capacity has to be under the 100 watt hours, and installed in an area in the cabin where the crew can localize it, and there's no let's say flammable substances close by, so away from oxygen lines, fuel lines, etc. And the qualification of the battery is important there as well. It does mean, I think, really airlines and lessors should take into consideration if they are installing the ELT. We still see it here in the hangar. Airlines and lessors are still installing the ELTs, which are quite old, and I suppose they're getting away with it, but eventually those ELTs, I think, are going to go off the market because of the batteries really won't meet the latest qualifications. For the moment, I think it's somewhat a grey area. I think it's a soft law as such, but we'll see that more and more. And basically, you're either going to need an STC or you're going to need to reclassify your mod as minor if you're installing an ELT defibrillator ULB or any other device with a lithium battery. Okay, we go back to the slideshow.
So we're still in the asset page, if you want. Yeah, so it's popping up here now. We're still on the asset page.
I'll stop and reshare. Hang on a sec. I think we'll have to get away from trying to share anything other than the.
Yeah, there we go. We're back with the how are DAO organizations responding COVID-19. So that's that page. So is the next page you want to go on to? Page down?
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So last thing there in the new development in the DOA world is there's a proposed CERT memo. So it hasn't been released yet, but it can still be used as a reference document. There won't be much change between what's there and what will be released. And that's a CERT memo coming out with guidance, or if you want rules for classifying cabin changes. So it's kind of a long-awaited document to try and clear up some of the grey areas that are out there in terms of classification for local changes, etc. The link is there. So Alan, I think if you share these slides,
that's fine, yeah.
You can go to that. Okay, last thing, guys, just to run through new designs for the post-COVID-19 era as such. New cabin layouts and features. I've got a link there, Runway Girl Network. So Runway Girl Network is it's a website that has some really, they follow what's going on in cabin interiors. And if you go there, you'll get some interesting information on, particularly on what the seat manufacturers are doing, coming up with new seat types, etc., to try and provide that separation. You'll see a lot of them. A lot of them are what they're doing is providing, instead of a triple seat, they're doing something in the middle, be it a barrier of some sort or whatever it might be. As a designer organization, we haven't really, there's a lot of certification issues involved there. So we're kind of waiting to see what airlines really want to do. And we'll go from there. So what we are doing as a design organization is we're trying to look past, put some of our resources into developing solutions for what we see, after in a post-COVID-19 era. I think we're going to see a lot of aircraft movements. So lessors trying to move aircraft. And we've had discussions with lessors in the past about what they want to see design organizations doing. And we haven't had the capacity to do that. We've been too busy working on various mods. So really, we're going to put some resource now into looking into STCs for Zero Pax LOPA and potentially extending our privileges to include approval of flight conditions for permit to fly. Also, off-the-shelf solutions for when moving aircraft. So we have a list there of kind of, we want to develop some mods that we can issue quite quickly then in those cases. So some of these will be STCs and so potentially some minor, mostly STCs here, but the lithium batteries. So if, we need to develop standards really. So at least if we can get over the line, have a solution on the various types for ELTs, ULBs, AADs, at least we'll be able to offer those when there's a requirement. The dual battery needed for extended flight. We see that here a lot on 737s that are changing airline and they want to have the additional power source essentially, typically for the PO heat. And CVRs, so there's a lot of changes coming up with CVRs or changes in the past as well, and we still see inquiries. So the 25-hour capacity is one, depending on the age of the aircraft, of course. Switching of the CVR, so some aircraft, we say they're built where the CVR comes on with engines, and there's a requirement there for CVR to come on earlier. Independent power source, so already a requirement, I think, for some aircraft, but I think EASA will be, so there's a rule coming out and EASA are going to be implementing a requirement for independent power source for CVRs, essentially a battery power source for the CVR, otherwise known as a RIPS. and the data link recording. So we've had some inquiries. It's something I think that wasn't really considered too much. So CPDLC has been done, I'd say, on most aircraft at this stage. It's been implemented, definitely in our hangar. We've been doing it for the last couple of years. But quite often, there's no requirement in YASA for data link recording, but that is a requirement under the FAA CPDLC requirement. So I think it's something we might see if lessors are trying to move aircraft from here over to the US. So hopefully we can come up with a solution for that. And that's it from Atlantic Aviation, I think.
That's great.
My contact details, guys, if anyone needs them afterwards.
Thanks very much, Colin. If you can stop share the screen there now, we get John installed to start the second presentation. There we go.
Super.
Thanks very much. We have one question for Colin. Come to at the end of John's presentation. So.
Okay. I'm just getting this across now for you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're just seeing the desktop there at the moment, John. So
you getting anything there now?
Nothing yet. There we go. Yeah, that's the full screen and all. Away you go.
Yeah. Thank you, Alan, and thank you for inviting me, and thanks everyone for joining in. Colin, that was a very interesting presentation. I hope I can keep everybody's interest as well. My name is John Hunt. I'm the Managing Director of TEG. I'm also the Accountable Manager for our Part 21G organization, our production organization. I'll give you some background on our company. We're located in Mullingar, 80 kilometers west of Dublin, 1 hour west of Dublin, and we're a Part 21J organization, a design organization, a production organization, and a Part 145. We've 120 people employed in the company. I'm pleased to say that we're fully operational. You know, aviation isn't our only business. Excuse me. We also support customers in the pharmaceutical industry, the medical device industry in 36 countries. You know, so at any one time, aviation can account for up to 40% of our business. You know, recently it's dropped from that percentage, but you know, I'm glad to say we're still busy. You know, we've got a lot of engineering skills which we combine together to provide solutions to the customer. Of the 120 people, we've got 26 apprentices. Very good in the area of design and project management. Our Part 21J certification includes the following areas. You can just see them illustrated there on the aircraft. It's quite extensive. And you know, we have a good team, a good design team behind us. What I'm going to focus on more is the Part 21G, you know, and our Part 21G organization, it covers structural, metallic and non-metallic aircraft parts and assemblies. It's for all aircraft types. We don't do hot engine parts or moving engine parts or avionics, you know, but it covers everything else. You know, we're able to manufacture parts up to 5 meters in length. We've done some very, very substantial parts for aircraft and issued the EASA Form 1 with them over the years. We're quite well known for AOG related work, you know, on structural parts. The supply chain, Alan asked me to talk about the supply chain, and you know, in TEG we work with Airbus and Boeing, along with a lot of MROs, Colin included, and leasing companies and airlines, and we distinguish internally between aerospace and aviation. Aerospace is focused on the OEM, supplying into OEM or tier 1 or tier 2 suppliers, and it's big volume and predictable. The sales are predictable over the course of 2-3 years. Aviation is different. It's low volume, it's immediate, there's no guarantee of future work, and it's dealing with airlines, MROs and leasing companies. the COVID, I'm going to just give you some background on what has happened to COVID in manufacturing, because I'm not sure how many of you are in manufacturing, but most companies in the supply chain, they're concentrated in a single industry on aerospace. The reality is that the average supplier in the aerospace sector has 3 customers accounting for more than 90% of sales. It's big volume work. There are high overheads, skilled staff and regulatory demands cause high overheads. With the machinery and with the testing and also with the surface treatments, NDT, all of that, it's quite capital intensive. And with the volume that's involved, well, the margins are low. Its volume's not quite as high as the automotive, but nevertheless they are high volumes compared to
industry. If you're enjoying the aviation diploma to date, this is certainly an honor.
Sorry, I missed that.
Sorry, there's some background noise there. You should be okay, John.
Okay. So long-term high-volume contracts, they're highly sought after because of the predictability. And I'm sure you've been reading the financial pages. These companies are vulnerable when volume reduces and borrowings still have to be paid for investment and working capital. So that's the scenario that these companies were facing, or that the industry was facing right up until January. And up until January, all of the companies were being encouraged, despite the 737 MAX, they were being encouraged by the overall supply chain to invest for future additional capacity. And many of them did do that. So it really has been a very severe downturn and very sudden, for them. Reading some of the articles in the media, Boeing is cutting 16,000 jobs, 10% of its workforce. Airbus has cut production by 1/3. 2/3 of the world's passenger jets are grounded. There's an article in the Financial Times today about how Airbus is appointing some retired veterans to rescue its aviation supply chain. It's probably the best article that I've ever read about it, and I recommend it to you all to read it, just to get some background on what is happening in the supply chain for aircraft parts. Well, the impact of it, it's going to take several years for this to restore to levels last seen in January. That's according to Production Engineering Solutions, and I certainly agree with it. I've many friends in the industry, and they're all telling me about order books being cancelled or delayed at a minimum. It's brought cash flow implications, resources, staff, equipment reduced to match demand. Demand is significantly lower. The 3rd and 4th tier suppliers, any company less than 500 staff, it's experiencing very severe trading conditions. That's for those companies that are almost focused exclusively on the aerospace sector. And one sure sign of the difficulty in the industry is that the quantity of CNC machinery for sale on websites, it's at an all-time record high. So there's a lot of pain. It's very significant that that machinery is being offered for sale. What does this mean for the supply of aviation parts? Parts that airlines are going to require, and leasing companies, MROs. Well, the replacement parts for any aircraft that's currently in production, it'll always be available from the OEM. That's not going to change. There may be difficulty, in getting parts from the OEM for aircraft that are no longer in production. And we know it's already a longer delivery time, but it could get even longer. We all have to accept that it's much harder to restart a supply chain than to shut it down. The COVID-19, you know, just the practical implications of it, you know, the OEM approving a new supplier to replace a struggling or a supplier that went out of business. You know, training of engineering staff is very important. It's very time consuming. Purchasing equipment, obtaining the necessary approvals. All of these take several years. You know, once a supplier is gone, you know, and restarting it, you know, is difficult. You know, so the options, you know, for aviation parts, you know, in MROs and in airlines and with leasing companies, you know, there are a number of options, and I put them down in the order of what I see is the sequencing and the decision-making process. The OEM will always be the first port of call, you know, and that's not going to change. You know, if the OEM doesn't have a part, well, then the airline, the MRO, is entitled to seek OEM approval for local manufacture. In the case of Boeing, it's obtaining a Boeing small. In the case of Airbus, it's an authorization letter for local manufacture. You know, generally for AOG situations. You know, but it's important to bear in mind a significant proportion of those engineering workshops that are capable of doing such work, you know, are experiencing severe difficulty. You know, it will get EASA Form 1 certification can be issued, you know, for when such approval is given. And like Colm, you know, TEG is seeing an increase in activity for freight aircraft, for example, with DHL. You know, they come to us and look for parts. The third option is the secondary market, you know, and, you know, that's a good solution, you know, as long as the holes match up for a used part. You know, you're putting it onto a new aircraft, and, you know, that can sometimes be a challenge. An area that we think in TEG that we think will become more attractive is the ASA Part 21 solution. You know, where the DOA POA process approves an alternative part, you know, to perform the same function. You know, over in the United States, it's referred to as a PMA part. I prefer to call them non-OEM parts. You know, there is, under the ASA system, there is faster delivery. It is more cost effective. Smaller quantities can be accommodated, and sometimes even a quantity of one. And from the operational point of view, you know, there's a lot to be said for this solution from the airline operating the aircraft, because the same EASA regulations apply to the DOA as apply to all of the OEMs, you know, and, you know, the DOA, POA work under the same EASA regulations. You know, so the non-OEM parts that we have seen over the course of the years, you know, have been generally passenger seating, storage area, lavatory, galley, cargo, the interior of the aircraft. More recently, we're seeing non-critical parts of aircraft on a case-by-case situation. You know, and TEG is doing such work, you know, for airlines. You know, when they come to us and they say, "Can you do this? Can you provide us with an alternative part number?" We believe, you know, that the potential lack of supply may cause aircraft lessors and airlines and MROs to review the policy, you know, on non-OEM parts certified with EASA Form 1. That's our opinion, that it will become more common. You know, so in conclusion, you know, I guess nobody really knows what the future will bring. You know, there are government supports right throughout Europe, you know, given to the industry. You know, they cannot last indefinitely. You know, and, you know, these supports, they're camouflaging difficult situations. You know, so there is going to be pain. A small number of companies are going to get preferential treatment because they've got defence contracts. You know, and, you know, the UK Ministry of Defence is going to make sure that they've got strategic suppliers still located in the UK. and rightly so. So they will get special support. I'd say as an industry, we just have to collaborate to maintain public confidence. Because when the tide rises, it'll lift all of our boats, and in the meantime, we just stay positive and help each other out. So that's the background on it. And thank you, everyone. My contact details are here. Contact me and stay safe. So thank you.
That was very interesting, John. Thank you very much. It gave us a great overview of what's possible to keep aircraft flying, and we all want to see that happening and increasing again in the current climate. So thanks again for that. I suppose a related point, I just was talking to somebody before the call, and you probably spotted the big deal that Lufthansa have done in relation to a government bailout. And I hadn't read the small print, but one of the conditions, it seems, is that the German government don't want any internal flights by Lufthansa in the near future as part of the environmental impact. So that's a topic maybe for a future Zoom call we might have a look at. So I just want to, before we have the short APTN update, there was one question for Colm from Andrew T, who's joining us from Singapore, I believe, Andrew, and he's from a lessor out there called Bellinger, and the question was, Colm, would relocating an existing installed portable ELT be classified as a major or minor mod? Would you be able to comment on that?
Yeah, so it actually falls under the same kind of criteria as a new installation. So Andrew, I'll just maybe go back to that slide.
Can you stop sharing, John, your screen first, and then Colm can kick in?
How do I do that? No,
so at the bottom of the Zoom window, you have share screen, so you should be able to stop share. It should be red to stop share.
No, I don't see it.
Okay, maybe I can do it here then. Let me see.
Do it there. Yeah, thank you.
So, yeah, just can you share a screen there, Colm? I think it says multiple participants can share simultaneously. Just try and share your screen there.
Yeah, you should be able to see. Should be able to see that YASA slide again.
All right, 1 second now. Apologies for the sharing up. So, okay, try again.
Okay.
Right, try again. Actually, I had another button off there, so just one more time.
There we go. Okay, super. So I didn't go through that point to answer Andrew's question. The second point would say these are the possible reclassification. There's kind of three kind of options that YASA have given here. You can probably ignore the third one because there's not too many batteries that are under 5 watt-hours, and there's no such thing as a battery that meets this latest. So this standard doesn't even exist yet. This 142B is still being developed by YASA. Anyway, the second point there, relocation of an already approved installation. So you'd imagine that would automatically be a minor mod because the ELT is already existing, but they specify here in brackets where the special conditions were applicable. These special conditions only came out in the last couple of years. They were only applicable on the type certs for the various aircraft this year. No, end of 2019. So to be honest, unless there's an STC or unless it was on the, unless you can show that the ELT that's installed meets the special condition, then it's going to be a major mod. So really that's the concern here, is that YASA have issued a special condition against lithium batteries, and to comply with a special condition, it's major. So really what they're saying is if there's already a major mod with special condition applicable or done on the type cert installing that ELT, then you can move it, provided you don't you know, provided you can show that you're locating it somewhere where it's, you know, where there's no impact on the original safety assessment. So quick answer is no. What we've done, you know, like when I say we've been affected, we've done a couple of mods. We had aircraft coming through the hangar, and we've had a couple of cabin changes as a DOA. And our advice is, if there's an ELT there or if there's a defibrillator there, leave it there.
So, Colin, what about ones that were installed as part of the TC of the aircraft? So, say it's a new delivery, and you want to relocate it.
Yeah. So Andrew, the type cert will say, like most of the aircraft we're dealing with, you know, the type certs are pretty old at this stage, and you know, if you're talking about an aircraft that's more than a couple of years old, then the special condition wasn't applicable back then. So it's a new special condition. It's only been put onto most of the type certs in the last, like towards, you know, mid to end of 2019. So even though it was installed by the OEM, the OEM didn't have to comply with the special condition during that original installation.
Right.
Yeah.
So the idea is don't move it.
Don't move it, or if you do move it, you got to either reclassify your mod or do it as an STC. Now, we're going through the reclassification process. We went down the route of reclassifying one last year and failed because it was an old ELT where the battery, you know, we couldn't show that the battery met any of the newer requirements. But we're going through the reclassification process at the moment for a ULB. And we're going through that for the 320 and the 73. And so far, that's very recent. It's in the last week. We sent it, you know, we sent off our document supporting that about a week ago. And they've come back and they've said in both cases, you know, that they're happy from a cabin safety point of view, and just it's with the electrical people. So the reclassification doesn't seem to be too onerous if we follow the guidelines. But, you know, in the event that you have an ELT there that's not going to pass muster, as they say, if you leave it there and change all the other emergency equipment on the aircraft around it, it can stay there. Yeah.
Thanks, Colin, for that. If there's anybody else with questions, if not, I'll move on to the short APTN update. Okay, so a couple of screens. One, a new one that you may have not seen before, just to give you a kind of an overview of our target membership numbers for APTN. So we have looked at the global aircraft technical professional population, and we have a database now of over 5,000 plus people by country identified. So if you look at Russia, we have 126 in our database. Ireland, obviously, is high; it's 575. Brazil, you can see, is 227. So what we're doing is we're going through each country that we think is a good target country from the point of view of trying to find good aircraft technical professionals. Recently, last week now, we targeted Colombia and Ecuador because of Avianca and Tame troubles down there. So we go from the 5,000 plus, let's say, population. We captured them initially into the, I'm going to share another screen here now, which, stop that one, is the APTN LinkedIn Hub. And that should be here. So that's the APTN Hub members group, which at the moment is over 1,135. So these are people who are following the news on APTN. A lot of them are taking part in the Zoom calls. We would like more and more of the members in the hub to move across to the actual IT platform that we've developed, and that's the third slide I'm going to show you, which is here. So when you're inside of the APTN hub, as an enterprise member, you can search this database for expertise, which is listed there by country or by world region or by by date, and you will get a shortlist. So just to show you one quick example, I mentioned Colombia there to you a minute ago, or Ecuador, whichever. Let me see, Ecuador. Search. Yeah, there's 3 airframe guys there. If I do structures, the same list of guys, is it? Yeah. So you go in there, you click on the guy that you might be interested in employing for a particular project in the region, and that's the usefulness of the system. The last slide I'll share with you is just an overview of the membership in terms of numbers in the platform, and that is here. So you can see there are 265 currently on the platform, as opposed to the 1,100 in the LinkedIn Hub group. The mix of expertise across the various aircraft technical areas is shown here. The types of aircraft that we ask guys to kind of specify where they're expert in is listed here. So that, I mean, Boeing and Airbus obviously top of the list, but there are other types covered. Engine types are here. And yeah, that's just a broad overview of the membership type. And that's our target, is to try and get as many of those 5,000 people on board into the platform. So on that note, I'd like to thank you for joining today. We had 6 aircraft lessors on board, thanks to Macquarie, AirCap, Airwork, ICBC, Bellinger and WorldStar for joining today. We had 4 engineering service companies. We had Aero Inspection, we had Acumen, we had Boston Air, we had FlyDocs, and then we had some APTN members joining as well. So thanks guys for joining this week. And on that note, we'll wrap up next week. I'm hoping to do a call on the area of aircraft jurisdiction and registrations, and we'll have a couple of speakers on board to talk about the pros and cons of different registrations, whether it be Bermuda, TUREG, EASA Reg. So we'll have a couple of speakers on that topic next week. And that's basically all from me, guys. And we'll conclude at that. We had 24 on the call today, and look forward to seeing you next week on board the Zoom call. All right. We'll leave it there for today.
Thanks very much, Alan.
All right, guys.
Thank you, Alan.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.